Tom was an ordinary young man who worked as a food delivery rider in the city. His life was simple but tiring. Every evening when the sun went down and the city lights began to glow, Tom climbed on his old scooter with a large delivery bag strapped to his back. He rode through the busy streets, carrying hot meals to strangers. Some nights were quiet, but most nights were filled with traffic, loud horns, and endless rushing. Tom often thought that his life had become a loop, the same roads, the same people, the same deliveries. Tom was not unhappy, but he was not happy either. He lived in a small apartment on the top floor of a building that smelled of damp walls and cooking oil. His room was small, with just a bed, a table, and a single chair. He owned very little, only what he needed to survive. His dreams were bigger than his life, but dreams did not pay bills. So every evening he tied his helmet, checked his scooter, and went out to work. On this particular night, the air was heavy with rain. Dark clouds had gathered above the city, and the first drops had already begun to fall. Tom pulled on his thin jacket and muttered to himself that it was going to be another wet shift. The delivery app on his phone buzzed, giving him his first order of the night. A large meal from a fried chicken shop, going to an old apartment, building near the edge of the city. Tom sighed, kicked his scooter into motion, and began his ride. The city at night was alive. Neon lights from shops painted the wet streets with colors. Cars splashed water as they moved, and people rushed with umbrellas, trying to avoid the rain. Tom maneuvered his scooter carefully, avoiding puddles and careless drivers. His mind wandered as he rode. Sometimes he thought about what life would be like if he had a better job. Sometimes he imagined leaving the city and traveling. But then the buzzing of his phone or the honk of a car would pull him back into reality. When Tom reached the old apartment building, the rain had turned heavy. He parked his scooter under a broken roof that offered little protection. Carrying the food bag, he hurried inside. The building was quiet, the kind of place where the paint peeled off the walls and the elevators always smelled of dust. He climbed the stairs and delivered the meal to a tired-looking man who barely thanked him before shutting the door. Tom was used to it. Most people saw him as part of the service, not as a person. He walked back down the stairs, listening to the sound of the rain outside. As he stepped out of the building, something caught his eye. The street was mostly empty, except for the shimmering of streetlights on wet pavement. Near the edge of the sidewalk, half hidden in a puddle, was something small and glowing faintly. At first, Tom thought it was a piece of broken glass reflecting the light. But as he walked closer, he realized it was not glass at all. It was a small object, no larger than his palm, smooth and metallic, with soft blue lights running across its surface. Tom bent down and picked it up. The object felt warm in his hand, almost alive. The rain did not seem to stick to its surface. It had strange grooves along its body, almost like writing, though Tom could not recognize the symbols. He turned it over and tapped it lightly, expecting it to be some kind of toy or gadget. For a moment, the blue lights flickered in a strange pattern, then went dim again. He looked around to see if anyone was nearby, maybe a child who had dropped it. But the street was empty, and the only sound was the steady fall of rain. Tom stood there for a while, the object resting in his palm, uncertain of what to do. It did not look like anything he had seen before. It was not a phone, not a remote, not a piece of jewelry. It felt different, unusual, almost important. With a shrug, Tom slipped it into his delivery bag. Maybe he would figure out what it was later. Maybe he could even sell it if it turned out to be valuable. For now, he had to keep working. The app on his phone buzzed again, reminding him of the next order waiting to be picked up. Tom climbed onto his scooter and rode away, the strange object rattling softly in his bag. As he rode through the wet streets, Tom could not shake off a small feeling in his chest. It was a feeling of curiosity mixed with excitement. Something about the object pulled at him, as if it was more than just a lost toy. He laughed at himself, telling his mind to stop making stories out of nothing. But when he stopped at a red light and looked at the bag behind him, he thought he saw a faint blue glow coming from inside. Tom shook his head and focused on the road. He told himself he was just tired, and that after finishing his deliveries, he would go home and sleep. But deep down, something had already changed. The ordinary night was no longer ordinary. The simple delivery ride was no longer simple, and the small glowing object in his bag was about to open a door to a life he never imagined. Tom returned to his small apartment late that night, drenched from the rain and tired from hours of deliveries. He parked his scooter under the building and dragged himself up the old staircase. His clothes were soaked, his arms ached, and his stomach growled. It was a normal ending to a long shift, yet something in his bag made the night different. As he reached his room, Tom tossed the food delivery bag onto his bed. He pulled off his wet jacket and boots, then turned his attention to the strange object he had found earlier. Carefully, he unzipped the bag and reached inside. The small metallic item lay there, glowing faintly as if it had been waiting for him. He placed it on the wooden table near his bed. The object was smooth, perfectly round on one side and slightly flat on the other. Thin lines of blue light pulsed across its surface, moving like veins under skin. The glow was gentle, not bright enough to hurt the eyes, but steady enough to demand attention. Tom sat on the edge of his bed, leaning closer to study it. He touched one of the glowing lines. To his surprise, the light responded, rippling outward like water disturbed by a stone. The object made a soft humming sound, low and steady, as if it was alive. Tom quickly pulled his hand back, heart racing. For a few seconds he just stared at it, unsure if he should be afraid or amazed. "This can't be real," he whispered to himself. He thought maybe it was a toy from a science fair, or a gadget made by some company experimenting with new technology. Still, no toy he had ever seen behaved like this. Curiosity pushed aside his fear. Tom touched the object again, this time pressing on a small groove that looked like a button. Instantly, the object lit up brighter. A thin beam of blue light shot upward, forming a shape in the air. Tom gasped and leaned back. Hovering above the table was a small three-dimensional projection. It looked like a series of symbols, glowing and shifting. They moved in patterns, forming circles and lines that rearranged themselves. Some looked like letters, others like numbers, though none belonged to any language Tom had ever seen. He reached his hand into the projection. The symbols shifted around his fingers as if they were smoke made of light. No heat, no resistance, just shimmering patterns. Tom sat frozen, staring at the display, wondering if he was dreaming. Minutes passed as he watched the lights dance. Then the projection faded away, leaving only the soft glow of the object itself. The humming grew quiet again, and the surface cooled in his hand. Tom sat in silence, the weight of what he had just seen sinking in. He leaned back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts spun wildly. Could this thing be from another country, another company, or another world? The last idea made him laugh nervously. Aliens were the stuff of movies, not real life. And yet what he held felt too advanced to be human technology. That night, Tom had trouble sleeping. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the glowing symbols. At some point, he drifted into a restless dream. In the dream, he stood in an endless field of stars. Strange voices whispered around him, speaking in a language he could not understand. The glowing object floated in front of him, brighter than ever, leading him forward. He reached out to grab it, and just as his hand touched it, he woke with a start. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains of his apartment. Tom sat up, sweating slightly. The object still lay on the table, silent now, as if nothing had happened. He rubbed his face, wondering if he had imagined the whole thing, but deep down, He knew it was real. During the day, Tom tried to distract himself with chores. He cleaned his scooter, washed his clothes, and made breakfast. But his eyes always drifted back to the glowing item. Every time he looked at it, he felt a pull, a strange sense that it was connected to him in some way. By afternoon, he could no longer resist. He picked it up again, rolling it in his hands. This time, he noticed something new. The glowing lines on its surface seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. When he held it close to his chest, the glow brightened slightly, almost as if it recognized him. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. He whispered, "What are you?" Of course, there was no answer, but the hum grew a little louder, like a purr of recognition. That evening, as Tom prepared for another night of deliveries, he considered leaving the object at home. A voice inside him, however, urged him to take it with him. He slipped it back into his delivery bag hidden beneath folded cloth and rode off into the city. The night was busy. Orders came one after another. Tom rushed through streets filled with cars, people, and flashing lights, yet he could not ignore the faint hum from his bag. Every time he slowed at a red light, he swore he saw a soft glow seeping through the fabric. Toward the middle of the night, something unusual happened. As Tom stopped in front of a crowded intersection, the object vibrated slightly. He frowned, opening his bag just enough to peek inside. The glow was stronger now, steady and bright. Suddenly, Tom felt a strange sensation like someone was watching him. He looked around and saw two figures standing across the street. They were tall, dressed in long coats, their faces shadowed by the night. What caught his attention was not their appearance, but the way they stood perfectly still, their eyes fixed on him. The traffic light changed, and Tom quickly drove off, heart pounding. He told himself it was nothing, just strangers waiting for a bus. But in the corner of his mind, a voice whispered that they were not ordinary people. When he finally returned to his apartment after midnight, he locked the door carefully. He placed the strange object back on the table and stared at it for a long time. For the first time in his life, Tom felt that his world was not as simple as he believed. Something had entered his life, something that did not belong to Earth. And while he did not yet understand it, he knew one thing for certain. His ordinary days as a delivery rider were ending, and something extraordinary was about to begin. The next evening began like any other for Tom. He tied his helmet, strapped on his delivery bag, and pushed his scooter out onto the wet street. The rain had stopped, leaving the roads slick and shining under the streetlights. His body moved through the motions of work, but his mind was far away, still focused on the glowing object hidden inside his bag. All day he had thought about it. The way it lit up when he touched it, the strange symbols it projected into the air, the dream of stars that felt more real than anything he had ever experienced. Tom tried to convince himself that it was just an advanced piece of technology, but the unease in his chest told him otherwise. As he rode through the city, Tom noticed something strange. At first, it was only a feeling, a prickling at the back of his neck, as if unseen eyes were following him. Then, as he stopped outside a restaurant to pick up an order, he saw them again. Across the street stood two tall figures, both wearing long, dark coats. Their posture was too stiff, too controlled, and their eyes were locked directly on him. Tom froze for a moment, then quickly looked away. Maybe they were just strangers. Maybe he was imagining it. He collected the food and placed it in his bag, but his hands trembled slightly. When he climbed back onto his scooter, he dared to glance again. The figures were still there, still staring. He drove off, weaving quickly through traffic. The city blurred around him, but every time he glanced in his mirrors, he felt certain he saw the shapes of the two figures in the distance. They never seemed to hurry, yet they were always near, keeping pace with him somehow. Tom delivered the meal and tried to push the thought aside. But when he came out of the building, his stomach dropped. The same two figures stood at the far corner of the street, half hidden in shadow. They did not approach, but their presence was enough to send a chill through him. He jumped back on his scooter and sped away. His heart raced, and his mind spun. Why would anyone follow him? Was it because of the object? Did they know what it was? When Tom stopped at a quiet alley to catch his breath, he opened his delivery bag slightly. The glowing object hummed softly, brighter than before, as if it sensed the danger. Tom shut the bag quickly, but the feeling of unease only grew stronger. For the rest of the night, the pattern continued. Every few deliveries, Tom would catch sight of the two strangers. Sometimes across a street, sometimes in the reflection of a shop window, sometimes even at the entrance of a building. Always watching, always silent. By the time Tom finished his last order, his nerves were stretched thin. He rode home faster than usual, glancing over his shoulder at every turn. The streets were almost empty now, the sound of his scooter echoing between the tall buildings. When he reached his apartment, Tom parked inside the small courtyard and hurried up the stairs. He locked his door twice and pressed his back against it, breathing heavily. His room felt smaller than ever, the shadows pressing in. On the table, the strange object glowed steadily, casting soft blue light on the walls. Tom dropped onto his bed and stared at it. The thought that had been growing in his mind all night now pressed against him with full force. Whoever those people were, they were after the object. And if they wanted it so badly, then it was more than just a lost toy. The hum of the object grew louder, filling the room with a strange, calm vibration. Tom leaned forward and touched it gently. At once, a projection rose into the air, but this time it was not just shifting symbols. The light formed a shape, tall and slender. At first it was blurry, then it sharpened into the image of a being that was not human. The figure had elongated features, glowing eyes, and skin that shimmered with colors like liquid metal. It spoke, and though the words were strange, the device translated them into broken English. "Holder of the key," the voice said softly. "You are seen. They follow. They want what you carry, but you must protect it." Tom's breath caught. His mind struggled to process what he was hearing. The projection continued, the voice calm yet urgent. "They are not of your world. They disguise themselves. If they take the key, many will suffer. You must keep it safe." Tom swallowed hard. "What is it?" he asked aloud, his voice shaking. "What is this thing?" The being tilted its head, the light flickering across its form. "It is a bridge, a tool of power and of message, chosen now by you." Before Tom could ask more, the projection flickered and vanished, leaving only the object on the table. The hum faded back into silence. Tom sat frozen, his heart pounding. He whispered to himself, "Not of this world." The words felt impossible, yet deep inside he knew they were true. Suddenly, a sound echoed outside his window. Heavy footsteps, too slow and deliberate to be random passers-by. Tom crept to the window and peeked through a gap in the curtain. His blood ran cold. Below, in the dim light of the courtyard, the two tall figures stood, their heads tilted upward, facing his apartment. Even from this distance, Tom could see their eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. He stumbled back from the window, his breath quick and shallow. They had followed him home. They knew where he lived. Tom grabbed the object and held it close. It pulsed warmly in his hands, almost like a heartbeat. His instincts screamed at him to run, to hide, to escape, before it was too late. But where could he go? He was just a delivery rider, an ordinary man in an ordinary city. And yet, as the glow of the object spread across his hands, Tom felt a strange courage rise within him. He had stumbled into something far larger than his life, something dangerous. Yes, but also something important. The footsteps outside grew louder. A shadow passed across his door. Tom backed away, clutching the object tightly. For the first time in his life, Tom realized that he was no longer invisible. He had something others wanted, something powerful, and from this moment on, nothing in his life would ever be ordinary again. Tom did not sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bed, holding the glowing object tightly, listening to every sound outside his door. The footsteps eventually faded, but the memory of the tall figures staring up at his window stayed in his mind. Even when the street fell quiet, his heart refused to calm down. As the first light of dawn touched the city, Tom finally stood up. He placed the object carefully on the table and rubbed his tired eyes. His life had turned upside down in just 2 nights. He wanted to believe he was imagining things, but the projection of the alien figure and the watchers outside proved otherwise. When evening came again, Tom was restless. His body wanted to work, but his mind was consumed by the mystery of the object. He strapped on his delivery bag as usual, but before leaving, he slipped the glowing sphere inside. For some reason, he felt safer carrying it with him than leaving it behind. The night shift began as always, with orders coming in through his phone. Tom rode across the city, weaving through traffic, balancing food deliveries with growing anxiety. Every time he looked over his shoulder, he feared seeing the 2 strangers again. Sometimes he thought he caught glimpses of them in the crowd, but they always vanished before he could be sure. Halfway through his shift, something happened that made his pulse quicken. As he turned into a narrow side street, the object in his bag began to hum louder than before. The glow seeped through the fabric, lighting up faintly against his back. Tom pulled over, heart racing, and opened the bag. The object vibrated gently, as if alive. Suddenly, without him touching it, a beam of light shot upward, forming a projection in the air. Tom's breath caught as the image sharpened. It was the same alien figure as before, tall and slender with glowing eyes and skin that shimmered like liquid metal. This time, however, the voice was clearer. The broken English was still strange, but Tom could understand more. "You are safe for now," the being said. Its voice was calm, almost soothing. "But danger follows. They will not stop." Tom looked around nervously. The street was empty, but he felt exposed. "Who are you?" he whispered. The alien tilted its head slightly. "I am a guardian of knowledge. I cannot come to your world in body, only through this bridge. You hold the bridge now. You are chosen by chance, but choice is still yours." Tom swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. "Why are they following me? Those people in coats, who are they?" The figure's glow flickered. "They are hunters. They serve those who want control. The key you carry opens more than you know. To them, it is power. To you, it can be hope." Tom shook his head, trying to keep up. "I don't understand. What does it do? Why me?" The alien's eyes glowed brighter. "It listens to spirit. It bonds with the one who dares to touch it. Many passed by, but only you picked it up. Now it answers only to you." Tom's hands trembled as he held the glowing object. He thought about his life. Ordinary. Invisible. Nothing special. He was just a delivery rider, someone the world barely noticed. And yet this being was telling him that he had been chosen, even if by accident. He whispered, "I'm no hero. I just deliver food." The projection flickered with what looked almost like a smile. "Heroes are not born. They are made by choice. Courage is not rare in your kind." Before Tom could reply, the sound of footsteps echoed at the far end of the street. His chest tightened. 2 shadows appeared, tall and familiar. The strangers were back. The projection's tone shifted, urgent now. "They found you! You must not let them take the key! Run!" The light vanished instantly. leaving Tom in the dark street with the humming object in his hands. His instincts screamed at him to move. He shoved the object back into his bag, climbed onto his scooter, and started the engine. The figures began walking faster, their long coats swaying as they moved. Tom twisted the throttle, the scooter roaring to life, and shot down the street. His heart pounded in rhythm with the glowing hum of the object. The chase began. Tom swerved. Through narrow lanes, the city lights flashing past him. Behind, he caught glimpses of the two figures moving unnaturally fast, far quicker than normal humans. No matter how sharply he turned or how fast he went, they always seemed close. Then something strange happened. The object in his bag grew hotter, and his phone buzzed without him touching it. The map on the screen lit up, showing a glowing path that guided him through the maze of streets. It was as if the device itself was helping him escape. Trusting it, Tom followed the glowing route. He zipped through alleys he had never noticed before, cut across bridges, and avoided crowded roads. Each time the hunters drew close, the object pulsed, and the path on his phone shifted, leading him toward safety. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, Tom burst out onto a quiet park at the edge of the city. The scooter skidded, slightly on the wet grass as he stopped, chest heaving, eyes wide. The park was empty, silent except for the rustle of trees. Tom dismounted and pulled the object from his bag. It glowed brighter than ever, casting a wide circle of blue light around him. For the first time, he felt a strange sense of safety, as if the device itself had protected him. He whispered, "What are you really?" The object pulsed once, as though answering in a language beyond words. For several long minutes, Tom just stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the strange light. He knew now that his life had changed forever. He was not imagining things. The hunters were real, the alien figure was real, and the object he carried was something far beyond Earth. Tom finally sat down on the damp grass, clutching the sphere in both hands. He was still afraid, but under the fear grew something new. A small flame of determination. He had stumbled into this by accident, but he could not walk away anymore. The device had chosen him, and whether he liked it or not, he was part of something much bigger than himself. Above the park, the night sky was filled with stars. Tom looked up at them, the blue glow lighting his face, and wondered how many of those stars held the answers he now searched for. Tom could still feel his heart pounding as he left the quiet park behind. The glowing object rested in his hands, humming softly, almost like it was alive. The night was cool, the streets wet from earlier rain, and the city seemed strangely quiet. Yet he knew the two figures were still out there, following him. The thought made every shadow feel threatening. He mounted his scooter, determined not to stop. The object pulsed gently, and he felt a strange connection, almost like it was guiding him. He followed instinct, turning down streets that led him deeper into the city. At times, he thought he saw the hunters moving in the distance. They're dark, coats swinging as they ran, almost floating above the ground with unnatural speed. Tom took a sharp turn into a narrow alley, the wet walls reflecting the blue glow of the object. His mind raced. He had no weapons, no help, and little experience with danger. Yet the object pulsed stronger in his hands, giving him courage. He realized he had to trust it completely if he wanted to survive. As he sped through the alleys, the streets twisted, like a maze. The object projected faint lights in front of him, creating arrows and patterns in the air, guiding him. Tom followed, twisting the throttle, narrowly avoiding trash bins and puddles. Behind him, the hunters were relentless, their steps echoing against the walls. Every turn he made, they were just a little too close. At one point, Tom dashed across an empty bridge. The object suddenly flared brightly, and he felt a surge of strength, as if the world slowed down for him. The hunters leapt forward, but the light from the object created a shimmering shield around him, deflecting their advance. Tom gasped, realizing that this was more than a simple gadget. It had power, and it could protect him if he learned how to use it. He turned sharply into another street. The hunters had split up, trying to trap him from both sides. Tom's heart thudded in his chest. He pressed the object tightly and felt a vibration running through his fingers. The streets ahead glowed faintly, showing a path only he could see. Without thinking, he followed it. The chase continued through crowded marketplaces, empty construction zones, and brightly lit streets. The hunters seemed almost mechanical in the way they moved, coordinated, always closing in but never making a mistake. Yet every time Tom felt cornered, the object pulsed and lit the way, giving him an edge. At one point, the hunters tried to block him at an intersection. They stepped into the road, tall and imposing. Tom swerved sharply, narrowly missing them, and pressed the object against his chest. A beam of blue light shot from it, creating a barrier that forced the hunters to step back. Their eyes glowed faintly red, and they hissed softly, clearly surprised by the power of the device. Tom did not stop to look. He accelerated, following the glowing path through another alley. His mind was focused, his movements instinctive. For the first time, he felt a strange confidence. He was no longer just a delivery rider. He was someone who held something powerful, something that could change the balance of life and danger in the city. The hunters regrouped, running faster now, using every shortcut to catch him. They were relentless, and Tom could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He weaved through a narrow passage, the walls close on either side. The object in his hands hummed louder, vibrating as if it were alive and urging him to act. Suddenly, a projection appeared in front of him. The same alien figure from before hovered in the air, glowing softly. "You are doing well," it said. "Trust the path. Trust yourself. Courage is stronger than fear." Tom's heart surged. The words, even though digital and projected, gave him strength. He felt a connection to the figure, a sense that he was not entirely alone. He pressed forward, letting the guidance of the object lead him through the labyrinth of streets. The hunters tried to corner him again at a dead-end alley, but the object pulsed and projected a bridge of glowing light in front of him. Without hesitation, Tom drove onto it. The bridge floated above the ground, shimmering, and carried him over walls and streets that would have trapped him otherwise. The hunters jumped, but could not follow. Tom looked down and realized how high he was above the city streets. Fear surged briefly, but the glowing object reassured him, and he pressed forward. By now he was sweating and exhausted. His muscles ached from holding the scooter steady while navigating impossible streets. Yet the thrill of escaping danger, guided by the alien device, made him feel alive in a way he had never experienced. Every turn, every leap, every pulse of light from the object made him feel stronger and more capable. Eventually, Tom reached a quiet section of the city near the river. The object's glow dimmed slightly, signaling safety. He slowed the scooter and stopped near a small park where the streets were empty. Behind him, the hunters paused, staring from a distance. They did not approach. They seemed to recognize that the device had protected him, at least for now. Tom dismounted, holding the glowing object close. He was breathing heavily, his chest heaving, but he felt a strange sense of pride. He had escaped, not because he was the fastest, not because he was the strongest, but because he had trusted the object and his own instincts. He looked up at the night sky, the city lights reflecting on the river. The object pulsed gently in his hands, a comforting warmth. Tom realized that his life had changed forever. He had gone from an ordinary food delivery rider to someone carrying a device of incredible power, hunted by unknown forces, yet capable of defending himself in ways he never imagined. As he sat there, the alien figure appeared again as a small projection above the object. "You are learning," it said. "Humans have courage, creativity, and spirit. These are your greatest strengths. The hunters may return, but you will be ready. Trust yourself, and you will not fail." Tom nodded, even though no one could see him. The words gave him hope. The night was dangerous, yes, but it had also revealed something important. Humans, even ordinary ones like him, had the ability to face challenges far beyond their understanding. He had survived, he had learned, and now he was ready to face whatever came next. The city was quiet again. The rain had stopped completely, and the streets were still wet. Tom placed the glowing object carefully in his bag, took a deep breath, and prepared to return home. He knew the hunters might not give up. They could appear again at any moment. But for the first time, he felt capable, alert, and alive. The city was quiet when Tom returned to his apartment. His body ached from hours of riding and running, but his mind was sharper than ever. The glowing object sat in his bag, pulsating softly, as if it sensed his determination. For the first time, Tom realized that he was not just a delivery rider who stumbled into danger. He had become someone who could act, who could make choices that mattered. Tom set the bag on his table and unzipped it carefully. The object hummed softly, casting its blue glow across the walls of his small room. He held it in his hands and examined it closely. Each pulse of light felt like a heartbeat, steady and alive. He remembered the words of the alien figure. Humans have courage, creativity, and spirit. Now he knew that those qualities were inside him, waiting to be tested. As he stared at the device, the memories of the previous night's chase replayed in his mind. The hunters were not ordinary humans. They moved with unnatural speed, coordinated as if they were following a plan. Yet, despite their power, he had survived. Not because he was stronger than them, but because he had trusted the object and himself. The realization filled him with a strange pride. The hum of the object grew louder suddenly. Tom jumped slightly, and the blue glow intensified. A small projection appeared above it, and the familiar alien figure materialized. Its expression was calm, but its eyes glowed with urgency. "You have learned much," the figure said. "The hunters are persistent. They will return. You must prepare, but know this. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear." Tom nodded, gripping the device. "I understand, but I don't know how to fight them. I'm not trained. I've never done anything like this before." The projection tilted its head, as if considering him. "Training is not always necessary. Trust your instincts. Use the key wisely. Humans have something they often forget. Adaptability. You can think quickly. You can act when others hesitate." Tom took a deep breath. He had spent most of his life following instructions, delivering food, doing what was expected. But now he realized that he had to make his own decisions. He had to act. The hunters were not going to stop. If he wanted to survive, he needed to fight back in the only way he could, with courage, wit, and the device he now carried. Later that night, the first sign of danger arrived. Tom was in the kitchen, preparing a small meal, when he heard a faint tapping at the window. He froze and turned slowly. Outside, two shadows moved across the apartment building opposite his. The hunters had returned. Tom's heart raced, but he did not panic. He grabbed the object and held it tightly. The device responded instantly, glowing brighter than ever. A soft vibration ran through his hands, steadying his nerves. He realized that the object would help him, but he had to lead. He had to act. He opened the window slightly and aimed the device toward the street. The hunters looked up and hissed softly. Their eyes glowed faint red, but they stopped moving. The device pulsed with a steady blue light, forming a faint barrier between him and them. Tom's courage grew with each beat of the glow. "Stay back," he said firmly, his voice louder than he expected. "I have this, and I am not afraid." The hunters moved closer, testing the barrier. The light from the device flared and expanded, forcing them to step back again. Tom's mind worked quickly. He realized that while the device was powerful, it required his focus and his choices to work. The hunters could be driven off if he remained calm and clever. He leapt into action. Using the device, he created a small projection of the street below. He made it flicker and shift, confusing the hunters. They jumped and moved, trying to find him, but every time they approached, the object formed another shield or projection, guiding him. Tom felt a new sense of confidence. He could think faster than they could react. He used the alleys and staircases of the building to his advantage, always keeping the device between him and the hunters. Each pulse of light, each projection, became a tool in his hands. He was no longer a victim. He was in control. Hours passed. The hunters finally retreated, recognizing that they could not reach him without drawing attention. Tom was exhausted, but he had survived again. He sat on the floor, holding the object close. Its hum had returned to a calm rhythm, as if acknowledging his courage. For the first time, Tom understood something important. He was human. And being human meant more than strength or skill. It meant courage, creativity, and resilience. The hunters could be powerful, fast, and intelligent, but they lacked the adaptability that humans possessed. He had proven that. The alien figure appeared one last time that night, hovering above the object. "Well done," it said. "You have learned to act with courage. You have learned that fear can be overcome. This is the first step. More challenges will come. But you are ready." Tom nodded, exhausted but determined. He realized that he no longer feared the hunters as much as he once did. The real power was not in the object alone, but in his own willingness to face danger and make choices. He had grown stronger in a single night than he ever imagined. As the city slept, Tom sat by his window looking at the glowing device. He understood that his life had changed forever. He had been ordinary once, unnoticed, and invisible. Now he was part of something larger, something that required him to be brave, to think, and to act. He smiled faintly, feeling a spark of excitement. The hunters could return, and the nights could grow even more dangerous. But he was no longer just a delivery rider. He was a human capable of courage, ready to face the challenges ahead. The glowing object rested in his hands, humming softly. Tom whispered to it, "Thank you for showing me what I can do. I'm ready for whatever comes." Next, above the city, the stars twinkled, and the night felt alive. For the first time, Tom understood that human courage was not just about facing danger. It was about hope, determination, and the belief that even an ordinary person could become extraordinary when needed. The morning sun filtered into Tom's small apartment, casting long shadows across the floor. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the glowing object resting on the table. For the first time since he had found it, he felt a calm determination. The object had changed his life in ways he never imagined. He was no longer just an ordinary delivery rider. He had courage, insight, and a new sense of purpose. The previous nights of danger had taught him much. The hunters had tested him, but he had survived by trusting the device and himself. Now, Tom knew that he could face whatever challenges were coming next. The alien figure's words still echoed in his mind. Humans have courage, creativity, and spirit. He had proven that he possessed all three. Tom prepared for the day carefully. He packed his scooter, placed the object securely in his bag, and took a deep breath. He decided to move through the city with awareness, scanning his surroundings for any sign of the hunters. They could return at any moment, but he was ready. As he rode through the familiar streets, Tom noticed subtle changes. The city seemed sharper, brighter, as if his eyes had adjusted to the hidden layers of life around him. Every shadow, every reflection, every movement in the crowd carried potential meaning. He had become alert, aware, and confident. He stopped, briefly at a small park to rest and examine the object. The device pulsed gently in his hands, almost like it was communicating. A small projection appeared above it, the alien figure glowing softly. "You are prepared," it said. "Your courage has grown. You have learned that fear is not weakness. Now you must learn to act not only to survive, but to protect." Tom nodded. "Protect? Protect what?" "The key you hold is more than a tool. It is a bridge between worlds. Those who seek it wish to control, not to understand. You can guide its power toward hope, toward growth, not destruction." Tom thought for a moment. He had never considered himself a hero, but now he realized that heroism was not about fame or strength. It was about choice. Every action he took could make a difference. And with this device, he could influence events far beyond his small life. Later that evening, the hunters appeared again. They moved silently, emerging from the shadows with precision and purpose. Tom's body tensed, but his mind remained calm. He held the device in front of him, and instantly it pulsed brightly. A shield of light spread around him, shimmering with energy. The hunters hesitated, as if recognizing the power in his hands. Tom took a step forward, his voice firm and steady. "You will not take this from me. I am not afraid." The hunters advanced, but the device responded immediately. Projections of light formed barriers and paths, confusing their movements. Tom guided the energy instinctively, directing the pulses to block their advances and protect his position. He realized he no longer feared them. He was using the device, acting with courage, and thinking quickly. He had grown stronger than he had ever imagined. The chase led them through the city streets, but this time, Tom was no longer running blindly. He led the hunters into a narrow plaza surrounded by tall buildings. Using the object, he projected a network of light paths above the ground. The hunters tried to follow, but their movements became confused, and they collided with shadows of light, losing coordination. Tom smiled faintly. The device was teaching him, guiding him, and he was learning fast. Courage, creativity, and spirit were his weapons now. He realized that humans had something the hunters could not match: adaptability. He could think, act, and adjust instantly. Finally, the hunters paused, realizing that the advantage was gone. They retreated silently, disappearing into the shadows of the city. Tom remained in the plaza, breathing heavily but feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced them directly, guided by the object, and survived. More than that, he had proven to himself that he could act with strength and purpose. As the city grew quiet once again, the alien figure appeared above the object. "You have learned well," it said. "This is only the beginning. The world will test you further, but your courage has been proven. You are ready to embrace the path ahead." Tom looked down at the glowing sphere in his hands. He understood now that this was not the end of his journey. It was only the beginning. The object had chosen him for a reason, and he had the chance to use it wisely. He could guide its power toward hope, not destruction. He could face danger with courage, not fear. For the first time in his life, Tom felt truly alive. He realized that being human was not about avoiding challenges or hiding from danger. It was about standing firm, thinking creatively, and acting with spirit. The device had revealed the best parts of him, and he intended to use those strengths fully. The city around him sparkled under the night sky, the buildings casting long shadows, the streets glistening with reflections from the river and streetlights. Tom stood tall, holding the object close. He knew the hunters would return, and new challenges would come, but he was ready. He whispered softly to the device, "Thank you for showing me what I can do. I will protect this." and I will use it wisely." The object pulsed gently, as if acknowledging his words. For the first time, Tom felt a complete connection with it. He understood that the device was not just a tool, but a partner, a guide, and a symbol of what humans could achieve when they embraced courage and determination. Tom mounted his scooter and rode through the city, no longer afraid. Each street, each corner, each shadow was now a part of the world he could navigate with intelligence and bravery. He had faced the hunters, survived, and learned. He had grown beyond the ordinary life he once knew. The glowing object hummed softly. In his bag, a steady companion. Tom felt a spark of excitement for the first time in his life. He had no idea what adventures awaited him, what dangers he might face, or what discoveries he would make, but he was ready to meet them all. He had courage, creativity, and spirit, and for Tom, that was enough. The city stretched out before him, alive with possibilities. The night was quiet, but the future was wide open. Tom rode on, the glowing device guiding him, the stars above shining brightly. He had begun a new journey, one that would take him far beyond his ordinary life. He was no longer just a delivery rider. He was human, brave, and ready to face the extraordinary.